Good morning, Auburn. On another beautiful day in this wonderful city, this is our third Citizens Minutes. Please enjoy. We had two citizens speak at the Citizens Open Forum during the June 18th council meeting. We put together a set of video clips from other council meetings also. First was Steve Cosgrove. Steve wanted to express his appreciation to all the leadership in Auburn, especially the Auburn Parks and Recreation, their professionalism, their extreme efforts, commitment, and dedication to the well-being of Auburn. Next was Robert Wilkins, myself. My speech was titled The Lack of Decorum. Our city council and mayor have no guidelines in what they say about Auburn citizens, but we Auburn citizens have extensive guidelines per the mayor and city council.
Okay. I'd like to read a statement before we move forward with citizens' communications, please. In support of and respect for open and fair and informed decision-making process, the City Council recognizes that civil and respectful and courteous discourse and behavior are conducive to the democratic and harmonious airing of concerns and decision-making. However, uncivil discourse and or discourteous and inappropriate behavior have a negative impact on the character and productivity of the decision-making process. In an effort to preserve the intent of open government and maintain a positive environment for citizen input and council decision-making, the council has adopted a set of citizens' open forum procedures which set forth the rules of decorum and civility which govern this part of our council meetings. These are available for every council meeting right over here as you enter. Specifically, paragraph 3 of the open forum procedure states in part that all citizens should use a professional and respectful and civil tone when addressing the council and should expect the same in return. This policy does not consider the content or the viewpoint of the speaker, but is critical to prevent disruption, preserve reasonable decorum, and facilitate an orderly meeting. Likewise, the first part of paragraph 4 of the open forum procedure states, Citizens Open Forum is an opportunity for citizens to present comments to council on non-agenda items and is not a forum for debate. As such, citizens should address the city council as a body and not address an individual council member or city staff member. For many years, this council has interpreted the first part of paragraph 4 to mean that the open forum portion of council meetings should not be used to personally attack or air grievances, or discuss in any manner individual council members or individual city employees. As such, speakers during the Citizens Open Forum should refrain from discussing individual council members or individual city employees by name or in a manner where those individuals can readily be identified. Again, this policy does not consider the content or the viewpoint of the speaker, but is critical to prevent disruption, preserve reasonable decorum, and facilitate an orderly meeting. It is not easy for me, as the mayor and the chair of these city council meetings, to administer these rules of decorum in the moment. In fact, sometimes it's very, very difficult. But I assure you going forward, I stand ready and willing to preserve civility and decorum in these meetings and to prevent disruption and facilitate an orderly meeting.
At Auburn's council meeting, freedom of speech has a lot of rules for we Auburn citizens, but none for the city leadership. Maybe some decorum would help our city leadership.
Your composure while under such attacks is admirable.
Ms. Bolt, you're done.
While 5 of
Ms.
your fellow
Bolt,
council
you're
members
done.
care to
Ms.
protect the
Bolt,
Constitution
you
and
are done.
rights.
Thank you.
Camellia Drive. The library is no longer a safe place for children. The books have flooded the shelves of the children's wing. It's all about sex, and more sex for children.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. The person before us here is describing the library in an inappropriate way. It's not a factual way that you're describing the content of this library at all.
I have viewed all these books.
All of the books.
In-
They're all, as you say. Is that your claim is that they're all sex?
I have checked out more than 100 books in the last 2 months, and they are about gender, sexuality, bisexuality, trans sex, this, that, and the other. No, not every book in the children's
Thank you.
wing.
Please continue, Ms. Shamp.
Yes, sex for children. How inappropriate. It's a form of child abuse. The librarians seek to normalize sexual activity to children, grooming them.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. That's an inflammatory statement.
I think it's the truth.
Grooming is just
It's the truth.
beyond acceptable.
They are grooming the children for promiscuity and perversion. Does a 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old need to know about transgender, bisexuality, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, lesbian, queer, intersex? No child needs this. The library has become a danger zone for Americans who still
Point
cherish.
of order, Mr. Mayor. Our library is not dangerous at all.
It is morally dangerous, especially to children who still, and Americans who still cherish virtue, purity, chastity, and the honorable estate of marriage, which our Lord says is one man, one woman, and offspring. And they are the majority, certainly in this city. But the library is sexualizing children, trying to corrupt the morals of minors, and receive a paycheck from us.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. The statements that this person before us is claiming is just false.
Every word is true. The Lord Jesus Christ, author of all mercy and truth, said this: anyone who causes one of these little ones who believe in me to fall into sin, it would be better for him to have a large millstone tied around his neck and be drowned in the depth of the sea. Matthew 18:6. Jesus Christ does not lie. Thank you.
Who'll be next? $5.3 billion. $5.3 billion. That's how much control that AJ Capital has in assets around the world. AJ Capital is the holding company for the Graduate Hotel Group, which is constituted of 37 hotels in the United States and over 100 properties worldwide. The concept and the idea that an organization and a company that is worth $5.3 billion and building a facility in this community that is probably millions and millions and millions of dollars would take the time to speak to an elected official and warn them about their vote in regard to a project going forward is preposterous, stupid, and fantasy. For 2 years, I've listened to this man talk down about me and indirectly about my family over a make-believe idea that he has convinced himself is true. I made a decision about how I voted on the short-term rental. And it was a challenging time. We were working through virtual means. It was a heated argument. I read a statement the night that we finally voted on this that you can find on the city's website. If there's any criticism for my leadership through that time or the reason I voted for this, it's all there. And it's fair game. But to make up this fantasy that something happened that was immoral and unethical and wrong is frankly disturbing. This gentleman has come here for 2 years to talk to us, primarily guided by his hatred for me and his distrust for me over what he sees as something that shouldn't have happened, that in reality was nothing more than a fantasy. Mr. Wilkins, that's why I will not meet with you, because your obsession with me is frankly disturbing. And you've not earned or deserve an opportunity to sit down with me one-on-one and talk. If you don't like our rules, come every week. You have the right as a citizen to tell us we're wrong, we're incorrect, we're not following protocol, whatever you want to say. But to try to do this based on character is unfortunate, and it's wrong.
Maybe some decorum would help our city leadership. I'm here to defend my honor after Mayor Anders showed a lack of class by calling me, Robert Wilkins, a liar in a public forum this past April the 2nd, 2024, about him voting against a raise for council members after the city council had just given him a 188% increase in salary.
I want to correct something that was said earlier. I have never cast a vote that prevented this council from receiving a raise. I've never done that. But look, don't let the truth get in the way of your narrative, Mr. Wilkins. I mean, as long as you keep repeating those things, somebody will believe them somewhere. But I've never cast that vote, just to correct you.
The Opelika Auburn News and Auburn Villager stated that the only council members, Dixon, Whidden, and Taylor, voted for the council member raise. Let me repeat that again. Dixon, Whidden, and Taylor only ones that voted for the raise. Mayor Anders' name was not on that list. So that means he voted against. Then Councilman Griswold made a statement in the meeting concerning the citizens forum, but he also made the same statement before.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr.
Mr.
Griswold.
Mayor, I just want to clarify something. According to state law, we don't have to have public comment except when a public hearing is required. Is that true?
That is accurate. The citizens' communications you offer twice on your agenda
Right.
are at the pleasure of the council and your council rules.
Yeah, and we added those two opportunities 2 councils ago, I believe it was,
In 2018.
because prior to that, citizens only had an opportunity to speak once, and it was the end of a meeting after everything had been adjudicated or deliberated. So this council's gone out of its way to provide opportunities for the public to speak, things that, again, are not necessarily required by law. I think we've done a good job on providing those opportunities. And I appreciate all of us up here sitting around and listening to all these things, the opportunity for people to speak. We may not agree with what they have to say, but it's certainly an opportunity, and I'm glad that y'all are taking advantage of it. I'd just like to point out, we've been criticized quite a bit up here about rights and this and that. According to state law, we have no requirement whatsoever to have citizens come up and address the city council unless it's for a public hearing. The prior council and this council took it upon themselves to provide 2 opportunities throughout our agenda for the public to come up and address things. So if anything, when people criticize us for denying or impeding their Amendment 1, First Amendment rights, we have gone the opposite direction. We have provided 2 opportunities, whereas by law, we don't have to provide any. So I'd just like to say that, we hear people coming up week in, week out, and that's fine. They have their time. We're happy to provide you time at the podium to make your comments. But please understand, this city council and the previous one have gone out of our way to allow public comment. The thing I'd like to clarify a little bit is the STR ordinance has been litigated, I believe, 3 separate times now, at the city, at the county, and at the Alabama Supreme Court. And on all 3 occasions, the ruling was on behalf of the city of Auburn, that our short-term rental ordinance, as we know it, it remains. And I don't believe there's any doubt about that, and it's been adjudicated 3 times in courts environments. So again, I think that we've done a good job on implementing something. And again, we're more than happy to sit up here and listen to people complain about it. But the fact of the matter is, it's been through the court systems, and the ordinance has been ruled acceptable. Thank you.
Susan Bolt, 1188 East University Drive. Tonight I want to talk about Dixon versus the City of Auburn, specifically 2 claims and their explanations from the Alabama Supreme Court. The first being a claim by Dixon that the ordinance violates his right to equal protection guarantees under the Alabama Constitution. As quoted from the Alabama Supreme Court decision, as this court has recognized, however, Alabama's Constitution contains no express equal protection provision. Then they went on to write that whether the Alabama Constitution provides for a guarantee of equal protection remains in dispute. Directly following these passages, they note that Dixon has not asserted a federal equal protection claim, appearing to confirm the knowledge that Ordinance 3288 does violate the 14th Amendment. Next, Justice Bryan, in his response, says, this court does not recognize a regulatory taking claim based on the Alabama Constitution. He continued when speaking of the Town of Gurley case that, quote, Alabama's failure to recognize regulatory takings is out of line with the vast majority of the states, which do recognize the concept of a regulatory taking under state constitutions. He continues, overruling Town of Gurley would provide Dixon and other landowners of the state the same basic protections under well-settled takings clause provided by other jurisdictions. So twice the Supreme Court sees an injustice and offers a path to overturn the ordinance. So, does the city of Auburn concentrate on the state constitution, knowing that it puts citizens at a disadvantage that forces them to defend their rights in court at citizens' expense? Why did the city manager and her staff present you with an ordinance that is unconstitutional? Should the city manager and her staff be forced to vet all ordinances to assure you, the policymakers, that they are constitutional? Or should the city manager and her staff be fired for presenting an unconstitutional ordinance to you? How comfortable are you now that you know that you were not given complete information when asked to vote on an ordinance that tramples citizens' rights? How well will you sleep tonight knowing that you were duped and used and that you cannot trust the information being presented to you for a vote? Mr. Dawson, at a previous meeting, you asked about the constitutional use of drones at the police department. Will you now ask the city manager to go on record as to whether Ordinance 3288 is constitutional both state and federally? Your characters and reputations have been used to benefit the city and used to hurt the citizens you swore an oath to protect. As the policymakers, I ask you to rescind the Ordinance 3288 and to rescind this unconstitutional attack on the citizens of Auburn.
Please make comments or improvement ideas on Citizens Minutes by responding on nextdoor.com or youtube.com. See you after our next council meeting on July the 2nd at 6 p.m. at 141 Ross Street. You should show up. Until Auburn's Voice.